The bank statement was wrong. It had to be. I stood in my kitchen, still in my gardening gloves, staring at the paper that had just destroyed 43 years of marriage. The college fund, Marcus's college fund, showing a balance of $212. $212 from what should have been $200,000. My hands weren't shaking yet. That would come later. Right now, I was still in that peculiar space between seeing a tragedy and feeling it, like watching a car accident happen in slow motion from across the street. Marcus was supposed to start medical school in 3 months. My son, my brilliant boy, who'd worked double shifts at the hospital while finishing his pre-med degree, who'd earned his spot at Johns Hopkins, who'd been promised by his father, promised that money would never be a barrier to his dreams. I set down the statement and picked up my phone, calling the bank. Maybe it was fraud. Maybe someone had hacked our account. Maybe Harold had moved it to a different investment. Maybe. The word we cling to when we're not ready for, certainly. Mrs. Henderson. The banker's voice was cautious. Too cautious. The withdrawals were all authorized. Your husband made them over the past 18 months. Would you like me to send you the transaction history? 18 months. While Marcus was studying for his MCAT, while I was planning his graduation party, while Harold kissed me goodnight and told me how proud he was of our son. Send it, I whispered. The emails came through within minutes. Pages and pages of transfers. Not to another account in Marcus's name. Not to an investment firm. To someone named Celeste Winters. Celeste Winters. The name meant nothing to me, but it had eaten my son's future one transfer at a time. 10,000 here, 15,000 there, some marked as consulting fees, others as property investment. All of it gone. I heard Harold's truck in the driveway, that familiar rumble of his F-150, the squeak of the door that I'd asked him to oil 100 times. For 43 years, that sound had meant safety, meant home, meant my husband was back from the hardware store he'd run since before Marcus was born. But now it sounded like a stranger approaching. He walked in whistling, actually whistling, with a bag of fresh tomatoes from the farmer's market because he knew I was making sauce tonight. He set them on the counter and kissed my cheek, his beard scratching the way it had for decades. "Got those heirlooms you like?" he said, unpacking the bag. "Tom gave me a deal on—" "Who is Celeste Winters?" The tomato in his hand stopped moving, just froze there, mid-air, like I'd pressed pause on our life. His face, God, his face told me everything before his mouth could form a single lie. $200,000, Harold. $200,000 of our son's money. He set down the tomato so carefully, like it might explode. "You don't understand." "Then make me understand." My voice was steady, but inside my entire world was collapsing. "Make me understand how you stole from our son." "I didn't steal anything. That money, I invested it. In Celeste Winters?" He flinched at her name on my lips. "She has a business. A restaurant. It's going to be huge, Dot. The return on investment will triple Marcus's college fund." "A restaurant?" I laughed, but it came out broken. "You gave our son's future to your— What? What is she to you, Harold?" He couldn't look at me. This man who'd held my hand through my mother's funeral, who'd coached Marcus's little league team, who'd built our back deck with his own hands. He couldn't even look at me. She understands me. 4 decades of marriage reduced to 3 words. How old is she? That doesn't matter. How old? 34. Young enough to be our daughter. Younger than Marcus's girlfriend. I walked to the window, needing distance, needing air. Our backyard stretched out before me. The garden I'd tended for 20 years. The swing set we'd never taken down even though Marcus had outgrown it decades ago. The oak tree we'd planted when we first moved in, now towering over everything. How long? Dot, how long have you been having an affair with Celeste Winters? 2 years. 2 years. I did the math automatically. A wife's instinct for timeline forensics. 2 years ago was when he'd started going to the gym, when he'd bought new cologne, when the hardware store suddenly needed him to attend weekend conferences. In Nashville, you used our son's college fund to finance your affair. It's not like that. The restaurant is real. It's in Nashville. It's already operating. The money will come back doubled, tripled even. I was going to surprise you both. I turned to face him. This man I'd loved since I was 22. His hair was silver now. His hands weathered from years of honest work. Or what I'd thought was honest work. Marcus got into Johns Hopkins. I know. The tuition is due in 6 weeks. I know. What were you planning to tell him? When he couldn't register for classes? When his dream died because his father chose his mistress over his future? Harold's face crumpled. I'll fix this. I'll get the money back. From Celeste? From the woman who understands you? She's not... It's not what you think. I picked up my phone, scrolling through the transactions. March 15th, $20,000. That was the day Marcus got his acceptance letter. April 2nd, $15,000. His birthday. May 10th, $30,000. The day of his graduation. Each date a betrayal. Each transfer a choice. Her over him. Affair over family. Lust over legacy. I'm going to make this right, Harold said, reaching for me. I stepped back. Don't. Dot, please. 43 years. Yes, 43 years. And in 18 months you destroyed all of it. Our savings, our trust, our son's future. For what? For someone named Celeste who owns a restaurant? You don't understand what it's been like. You and Marcus, you have your own world. Your books, your garden, his medical dreams. I'm just the wallet, the provider, the one who keeps the lights on but never really belongs. So you bought your way into belonging? With money that wasn't yours? My phone buzzed. Marcus. A photo of him in his scrubs from his hospital shift. Smiling, with a text. 4 more weeks of this, then I'm officially a med student. Love you, Mom. I showed Harold the text. Watched him read it. Watched him realize what he'd done. I need you to leave, I said quietly. Dot. Go to her. Go to Celeste. Go to your restaurant. But go. He stood there, this stranger wearing my husband's face, holding tomatoes for a dinner we'd never share. I never meant, yes, you did. Every transfer, every lie, every time you came home and kissed me after being with her. You meant all of it. You just never meant to get caught. He left the tomatoes on the counter. 20 minutes later, I heard his truck start. That familiar rumble now sounding like an ending. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because somewhere in Nashville, a woman named Celeste Winters had $200,000 that belonged to my son, and I was going to get it. Back. Every single penny. The private investigator's office smelled like burnt coffee and disappointment. Fitting, considering why I was there. Celeste Winters. James Murphy read from his notes, sliding photos across his desk. 34, divorced twice, currently operating Celestial, an upscale restaurant in Nashville's trendy Gulch district. I stared at her photo. Pretty in that calculated way. Blonde highlights, veneered teeth, clothes that tried too hard to look effortless. She was holding a champagne glass at what looked like the restaurant's opening. And there, in the background, partially hidden behind her, was Harold. That's from 14 months ago. Murphy continued. The restaurant opened with significant fanfare. Several investors, all of them older married men. How many? 4 that I've confirmed. Your husband appears to be the largest investor. 4 men. 4 families probably sitting where I was sitting. Discovering their futures had been stolen to fund this woman's ambitions. There's more, Murphy said, his tone careful. The restaurant? It's hemorrhaging money. Health code violations, staff lawsuits, terrible reviews. It'll be closed within 6 months, maybe sooner. $200,000. Gone. Not invested, not hidden. Gone. I drove home in silence, my mind calculating. The house was worth maybe $400,000. Harold's hardware store, if sold quickly, might bring in $300,000. Our retirement accounts, no, those were protected. The vacation cabin in Gatlinburg. My phone rang. Marcus! Mom, Dad's not answering his phone. I wanted to tell him about the apartment I found near campus. It's perfect. Walking distance to the hospital where I'll be training. Each word was a knife. Sweetheart, I said, pulling over because I couldn't drive and break his heart at the same time. Come home. We need to talk. Is everything okay? Is Dad okay? Just come home. An hour later, my son sat across from me at the kitchen table. The same table where he'd done homework, where we'd celebrated his acceptances, where his father had promised him the world. I don't understand, Marcus kept saying, staring at the bank statements. This can't be right. I'm so sorry, baby. He gave it to someone named Celeste? Who is Celeste? How do you tell your son that his father chose his mistress over his future? How do you explain that kind of betrayal? She owns a restaurant. Your father invested in it. Marcus wasn't stupid. He saw my wedding ring sitting on the counter where I'd left it. He noticed his father's coffee mug missing from its usual spot. He's having an affair. Not a question. A statement. Yes. Marcus stood up, paced to the window, back to the table. His hands clenched and unclenched. His father's gesture, inherited like his height and his stubborn chin. I'll take out loans. I'll defer a year. Work full-time. Save up. No. The word came out harder than I intended. You've worked too hard. Sacrificed too much. You're going to medical school on time. Mom, it's $200,000. We don't have... I'll get it back. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. Not as his mother, but as a woman who'd been betrayed, who'd been broken, who was holding herself together with pure determination. How? I don't know yet. But I will. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat at my computer researching everything. Celeste Winters, her restaurant, her history, her divorce records. Public documents that painted a picture of a woman who specialized in taking things that weren't hers. At 3 a.m., I found it. A social media post from 3 days ago. Celeste announcing a special investment opportunity in her restaurant's expansion. She was looking for new investors to join the Celestial family. She was running the same con again, using the money Harold had given her to attract new victims. I got dressed in the dark, drove the 2 hours to Nashville as the sun rose. The restaurant was in a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Trendy and expensive and empty at 7 a.m. But her car was there, a white Mercedes license plate Celeste 1. I waited. She emerged at 7:45, yoga mat under her arm, heading for the studio next door. That's when I approached. Celeste Winters? She turned, smiled that practice smile. Yes? Oh, are you here about the investment opportunity? You're early, but I appreciate enthusiasm. I'm Dorothy Henderson, Harold's wife. The smile froze, cracked, reconstructed itself into something harder. I don't know what Harold told you. He told me nothing. The bank statements told me everything. $200,000. My son's medical school fund. She actually laughed. That money was a gift, an investment. Harold believes in my vision. Harold is a fool. But you already knew that, didn't you? Just like you knew Richard Pemberton was a fool. And Michael Chen, and Thomas Garrett. Her yoga mat slipped. How do you... I know everything, honey. The endearment came out like a weapon. I know about the health violations, the lawsuits, the negative reviews you're paying to have removed. I know your restaurant is 3 months from bankruptcy. You can't prove anything. I don't need to prove it. I just need to make some phone calls. To Richard's wife, Michael's wife, Thomas's wife. 4 angry wives comparing notes, maybe visiting a lawyer together, maybe talking to that food critic from the Tennessean who's been dying to write an exposé about restaurant fraud. Celeste's face had gone pale under her spray tan. What do you want? Every penny of my son's money. I don't have it. It's tied up in the restaurant. Then untie it. You don't understand how business works. I stepped closer, 67 years old in my gardening clothes. But something in my face made her step back. I understand perfectly. You're a parasite. You feed on lonely men's midlife crises, and their families pay the price. But you picked the wrong family this time. Harold came to me. He pursued me. He offered the money. I don't care if he showed up naked with a briefcase full of cash. That money belonged to my son's future, and you took it, knowing exactly what it was. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Mom, Dad's at the house. He's crying. Says he wants to talk." I looked back at Celeste. "You have 48 hours to return the money. All of it. I told you I don't have it. Then find it. Sell your car. Sell your condo. Sell whatever jewelry my husband bought you. But get my son's money. And if I don't..." I smiled then, and it must have been something to see because she actually flinched. "Then I'll destroy you. Not just your restaurant. You. Every con you've run. Every marriage you've broken. Every family you've destroyed. I'll make sure your name is so toxic that you couldn't get a job at a fast food restaurant, much less run your own." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and Celeste? Harold's broke now. The house is in my name. The business, too. I made sure of that 30 years ago. So whatever you thought you were getting from him, this is it. $200,000 of someone else's money. Hope it was worth it." I drove home to find Harold's truck in the driveway and Marcus's car gone. Harold was sitting on the porch steps, looking older than his 68 years. "She called me," he said. "Celeste. She's furious. Says you threatened her. I negotiated. Something you apparently forgot how to do. Dot, please. Can we talk?" I sat down beside him, not close, not touching. But there, 43 years don't just evaporate, even when trust does. "I went to see her to end it," he said quietly. 3 months ago. But she said she'd tell you everything if I didn't keep the money coming. She had photos, texts. I couldn't let you find out that way. So you kept paying her, with our son's money. I thought I could replace it. Thought the store's summer profits would cover it. The store you've been neglecting for 2 years while you played teenager in Nashville." He started crying then. Harold, who I'd seen cry exactly twice, when his father died and when Marcus was born. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no rage, just empty. My phone rang. Unknown Nashville number. "Mrs. Henderson?" A man's voice. "This is Robert Winters, Celeste's first ex-husband. I heard you paid her a visit this morning." "How did you..." She called me, panicking, asking for money. She does that when she's cornered. "Listen, there's something you should know about that restaurant. Something that might help you get your money back." I stood up, walked away from Harold. "I'm listening." "The restaurant isn't in her name. It's in a trust, and the executor of that trust, that would be me. Part of our divorce settlement. I control everything." My heart started beating faster. "Why would you help me?" "Because she destroyed my family too. And because I've been waiting for someone with enough spine to finally stand up to her. Can you meet me tomorrow? Bring a lawyer. I think we can work something out." Robert Winters looked nothing like what I'd expected. Celeste's first ex-husband was a quiet man in his 50s, graying at the temples, with the tired eyes of someone who'd learned expensive lessons about trust. We met at a law office in downtown Nashville. Neutral ground, he'd called it. My lawyer, Patricia Hawkins, sat beside me, reviewing the documents Robert had brought. "It's all here," Robert said, sliding another folder across the table. "Every penny she's taken from every man. Your husband's $200,000. Richard Pemberton's $150. The others. All documented. Why?" I asked. "Why help us?" Robert pulled out a photo. 2 young boys, maybe 8 and 10, smiling at a baseball game. My sons. They're in college now, no thanks to their mother. When Celeste and I divorced, she was supposed to put aside money for their education. Instead, she used it to start her first restaurant scheme. I've been watching her ever since, documenting everything, waiting for the right moment. And that moment is now? The trust agreement has a clause. Patricia interjected, looking up from the papers. If the restaurant engages in fraudulent activity, the executor, Robert, can liquidate all assets and distribute them to creditors. And the investors are creditors, Robert added. Your husband, the others, they're all creditors. But here's the beautiful part. Celeste doesn't know about this clause. She never read the fine print of our divorce settlement, too eager to sign and get her hands on what she thought was freedom. I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. What do you need from me? Proof of fraud. The private investigator's report helps, but I need more. I need one of the investors to testify that she misrepresented the investment. Harold won't... I started, then stopped. Actually, he might, if it means making things right for Marcus. Robert smiled sadly. They always want to make things right after they've destroyed everything. My ex-wife taught me that apologies without restitution are just noise. That afternoon, I sat with Harold in Patricia's office. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by his choices. You need to tell the truth, I said simply. All of it. How she approached you, what she promised, how she threatened you. I can't. If this becomes public, the hardware store. The hardware store's reputation against Marcus's future. Choose. He chose. Finally, he chose right. His deposition was painful to watch. Every sordid detail, every lie Celeste had told him about the restaurant's success, every threat she'd made when he tried to leave. Patricia recorded everything. She said she had photos that would ruin me. Harold admitted. Said she'd send them to you, to Marcus, to everyone in town. But the worst part, after a while I didn't even care about the threats. I wanted to believe someone found me interesting again. I wanted to feel sympathy. Part of me did, but mostly I felt tired. 3 days later, Robert called an emergency meeting of all the investors at the restaurant. I insisted on being there, hidden in the office, watching through security monitors as Celeste faced her victims. She walked in confident, designer heels clicking on the concrete floor, until she saw them all together. Harold, Richard, Michael, Thomas, and Robert. What is this? She demanded. It's over, Robert said simply. I'm exercising my rights as trustee. The restaurant is being liquidated. All assets will be distributed to your creditors. You can't do that. Page 47 of our divorce decree says otherwise. The one you signed without reading because you were too busy celebrating, taking me for half of everything. She turned to Harold, then the others. You planned this? Together? Their wives planned it, Robert corrected. You forgot about the wives, Celeste. You always forget about the wives. The legal process took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of asset evaluation, liquidation, and distribution. The restaurant sold quickly to a legitimate buyer. Celeste's Mercedes, her condo, her jewelry. All assets of the trust, all sold. In the end, we recovered $173,000 of Marcus's money. It's not enough, Harold said when the check arrived. We were meeting at Patricia's office, neutral ground for signing divorce papers. No, I agreed. But it's enough for Marcus to start medical school. I'll take a mortgage on the house for the rest. I could sell the store. You already did. To your employees, Patricia told me. You're using that money to pay back the other families what couldn't be recovered. He looked surprised that I knew. It's the right thing. 43 years late, but yes, we signed the papers in silence. 43 years dissolved in ink and resignation. I loved you, he said as we stood to leave. I know you don't believe that now, but I did. I do. You loved me like you loved that antique truck in the garage. Something reliable you knew would always be there. That's not love, Harold. That's just possession. Marcus started medical school 2 weeks later. I drove him to Baltimore, his car loaded with textbooks and hope. He'd insisted on taking out some loans despite the recovered money. "I want to earn this too," he'd said, "not just have it given to me. My son, learning the right lessons from the wrong circumstances. Are you going to be okay?" he asked as we stood outside his new apartment. "In the house, alone?" "I'm not alone," I said. "I have my garden, my books, my life," Dad called. "He wants to come to my white coat ceremony." "That's between you and him, baby." He seems different, smaller, like he finally understands what he lost. Understanding and changing are two different things. Remember that when someone shows you who they are. Marcus hugged me tight. "You're the strongest person I know, Mom." "No," I corrected. "I'm just someone who finally learned the difference between being strong and being silent." The drive home took 6 hours. I could have done it in 5, but I stopped at a riverside park in Virginia, sat on a bench, and watched the water flow. A young couple passed by, holding hands, probably believing they'd never become Harold and me. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd learned what we hadn't. That love isn't just presence. It's attention. It's choosing the same person every day, not just on your wedding day. My phone buzzed. An unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Nashville. "Dorothy, this is Celeste. I almost hung up, please," she said quickly. "I'm not calling to threaten or argue. I wanted you to know something." "You have 30 seconds. Robert didn't tell you everything. The trust, the liquidation. He could have done that any time in the last 5 years. He waited until you showed up, until someone fought for their family, instead of just accepting the loss. Your point? My point is, you saved more than just your son's future. Those other families, they'd written off the money. But you fought. And because you fought, everyone got something back. Is this your version of thank you?" She laughed bitterly. "No. This is me telling you that you did what I never could. You chose your child over yourself, over your pride, your comfort, your marriage. You chose him. Every mother would—" "No," she interrupted. "They wouldn't. Mine didn't. She chose her new husband over me every time. That's why I became this. Someone who takes from families what was never given to me." The line went quiet. "I'm leaving Nashville," she finally said. "Starting over somewhere else. Maybe trying to be different. I don't know if I can, but watching you fight for Marcus made me think maybe it's worth trying." She hung up before I could respond. When I got home, the house felt different. Not empty, free. I made tea in my favorite mug, the one Marcus had made in 3rd grade art class. I sat in my garden as the sun set, thinking about second chances and last chances, and the chances we never take. Harold had sent flowers, roses despite knowing I hated them. Some lessons never learned. I composted them, mixed them into the soil where they'd do some good, where they'd help something else grow. Marcus called that night, excited about his first day of orientation. In the background, I could hear other students, new friends, his future unfolding. "Thanks, Mom," he said, "for everything. For fighting for me. Always." I promised. Always. And I meant it, because that's what real love looks like. Not grand gestures or stolen money or restaurant investments. It looks like a 67-year-old woman facing down her husband's mistress in a parking lot. It looks like choosing your child's future over your marriage's past. It looks like learning, even at my age, that the only inheritance worth leaving is proof that someone fought for you. Someone always fought for you.